Hello. Welcome to Next TMT, our weekly podcast. In this case, our bi-weekly podcast. We have a special IBC preview issue you're reading. Today, David.
Semi-weekly. It's not
Is it not
bi-weekly.
bi-weekly? Okay. All right.
Semi-weekly. Half a week, not 2 weeks.
You turn this over, David, and this is what happens. So
Here's the
David,
problem. I'm on grandma's Wi-Fi.
I
and
was going to
that
get to that.
going about as fast as grandma's Wi-Fi would go. So
My co-founder, David Bloom, and joining us with us is a special guest. You know her, you love her, you've seen her before. StreamTV senior editor, Bevin Fletcher.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you again. Well,
good to have you. You worked with us extensively at StreamTV a couple months back. So we're thrilled to have you back. You're going to IBC. We thought, hey, perfect candidate to subject you to our semi-weekly podcast.
we wanted to get the band back together, Bev, and you're kind of the lead singer. So
I thought it was more of a tambourine, but okay, I'll take it.
look, lead singer can do the tambourine. Just ask Robert Plant. I mean, totally. As long as you can hit those high notes. Been a long
the
time.
cowbell. You're playing the cowbells, it might be. Okay, so we're our topic, and we do have one, is IBC 2025 in Amsterdam. You two will be there starting September 12th.
November 12th.
Roughly a week, and extending into Monday, September 15th. A lot going on. It's like everything else. IBC took a hit in the post-pandemic era. Its attendance kind of fell off a cliff. I think it was nearly 57,000 out the door in 2019 and fell. It was way down there. It's come up the last couple of years. It was 45,000 last year, and I get the feeling it'll be a lot closer to that sort of 2019 level this year. A lot of anecdotal heat, it seems like, for that show.
Doing better. Hey, Dan, I just want to say IBC probably doing better than the theatrical box office, which didn't even beat last year's summer, which was down from 2023, and all of it's way, way down from pre-pandemic. So IBC's rocking it for broadcasting.
It does seem that way. I mean, at least anecdotally, I've heard a lot of people going. And Bevin's going. Bevin, what are you going to do there? What's the plan?
Well, I got a lot. Mine actually starts the day before the actual IBC show because Marion Ranchet, if you know her, she's founder of Streaming Made Easy. She also does a podcast with Evan Shapiro. She's doing a little half-day event.
Oh, good. You pronounced Shapiro right.
Yeah, beforehand.
An accent on there now that helps.
She's got some heavy hitters, people from Netflix, Channel 4's Grace Bosworth. So that should be an interesting half-day event before, kind of prep us before the IBC show. But yeah, there's a bunch of sessions. You want to dive into topics or call out specific?
When you fly in, you're jet lagged. What do you want to see first?
Well, one thing I'm going to be curious about is definitely, I was taking a look back because I've only been to IBC once before, and that was 2022. So that was their first year back post-pandemic. So I don't know if that's the best baseline for the show, but I remember one of the things I took away from that show was the growing state of FAST, which even in Europe maybe wasn't so big then. But I'm curious to see how the free streaming market is evolving in Europe too, because I mean, obviously there's a lot of distinctions and it's still a competitive space, but you've got the broadcasters with their BVOD services. They have their freely collaborative efforts, but then you have players like Tubi who are from the US trying to make their entrance. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see the different dynamics at play there. There's also going to be an interesting panel, I think. I forgot which panel it is. But I will be speaking to Cedric Monnier. He's the CEO of Ocast TV, their European B2B streaming. They also coordinate some European projects like Fast 4 EU. So that's focused on Fast and AVOD in Europe. And I think he's doing a keynote with, or a panel with 3 other CEOs on kind of the streaming landscape in Europe. So definitely excited for that session.
What I noticed, I kind of perused the fair today, and a couple of sports streaming things stood out.
Yeah.
There was some executives from AWS and Nvidia collaborating with a high-level executive for Formula One, talking about AI enhancements to sports streaming, which looks like that was a Friday morning panel. Looks like it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a couple of sports things on Friday that are pretty fascinating. But to me, what's interesting, it'll be interesting as a sports geek from the United States to go there and see Formula One, gigantic, soccer, as they call it, football, more giganticer, and other sports like cycling, which is huge on the continent. I mean, but the sports that get emphasized, the sports that the rights are crazy expensive for, are just a little bit different than they are in the United States. And it'll be interesting to see, given the different structures, the language challenges across dozens of countries in Europe. This is an international broadcasting conference, but it's European centric, we'll call it, given where its location is. But we'll get a sense of some of what's going on even beyond Europe's shores that I think will be really interesting. And sport is just as important for tune in and engagement and driving people to show up and keep subscribing and keep following. It's just different sports, right? It's not American football, college and pro. It's football, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's really fascinating to see how that's going to play out on stage in some of the conversations. But AI, everything is going to have an AI component to it, right? So that's inescapable.
Western Europe is a vital market, and you understand why an event presence is needed there. But it seems like, everybody is sending somebody there. It seems like in terms of media tech. I wonder how much of it is globally you need a destination to reach your international markets, and travel to the U.S. right now probably isn't easy for your international constituents.
It's gotten a lot tougher. I mean, some of the restrictions on visas are A, more expensive, B, much tougher. You're going to get your phone and your computer rifled through by Customs and Border Enforcement. It's a lot tougher for internationals to come in and for us to go there. So that's an interesting dynamic. It may actually make IBC bigger than ever when you think about it.
That's a good point. And on the AI topic, also Netflix is making an appearance on Saturday, I think, to talk about production innovation. And they just came out with their Gen AI guidelines for production. So I'm curious if they'll talk more about that. And if
they don't do much of any conference stuff. I mean, we've been to a lot of conferences, all three of us. You don't see Netflix that often. Occasionally they'll wander down the street if there's something in Hollywood and the W Hotel on the next block over from their headquarters, maybe they'll wander over. But even that is not that common. So having them
they have their head of Spanish and Portugal production speaking one of the first couple of days. And each one of their regions has gold mines of news nuggets. Also, speaking of the top streaming companies, YouTube has a presence there. They're sitting down with Channel 4 and discussing their infiltration to the European connected TV market, which I think that's how the world spins the opposite direction, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think the astrophysicists will back you up on that, but hey, whatever you think, because facts are kind of loose these days in many circles out there. So goodness knows, reversing the spin of the earth, right up there.
But I'm curious, what do you think? Because I know when we all talked at StreamTV, I think we said, the overhang of YouTube's kind of rise and dominance loomed over a lot of conversations. Is it seen as much of a competitive threat in other markets, or are they all kind of dealing with the same dynamics?
I think it's a really good question, Bev, because you're right. I mean, at StreamTV, that was the Darth Vader kind of looming over everything.
It really was.
Yeah.
And it was just, even if they didn't invoke his name like Voldemort, YouTube was part of the conversation in some fashion with seemingly everybody. It's eating up more market share. Like every month, the gauge from Nielsen comes out and they've got another little couple tenths of a % of market share. Ding, 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 ding. At a certain point, it's like it's going to eat the entire video business. But you're right. I'll be fascinated to see how it plays over there.
The gauge. I mean, there's a cottage industry that exists on LinkedIn now of the day that thing comes out, taking it, breaking it down and creating new components out of it. And look what I came up with the gauge. Nielsen completely transformed its image with this thing. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Well, and that actually adds another interesting question for the international markets that will be on display is metrics, right? How do we measure? Who are the third-party players in Europe, and how important is it? Because you've got all these individual languages and markets. Yeah, the EU is one big old market about the size of the United States, quite as big in terms of economic impact, but very, very big. But it's a whole bunch of countries that speak a whole bunch of languages and are chopped up on a media basis. And so who's tracking and how do you even evaluate from an advertiser standpoint how you reach the guy in Denmark and the guy in Greece and the guy in Hungary, right? I mean, how do you do that? Do you do that? Like, will AI, for instance, take care of the whole translation, subtitling, captioning, in a heartbeat for all those different countries? And that's certainly the promise. I think that we were hearing from a couple of our sponsors as they could get ready to go to IBC that, it'll be able to transform some of that and make it a lot easier. Well, what does that mean for the advertising? What does that mean for the dynamics of blowing that market up in a bigger way? Kind of fun to think about.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I wonder, in terms of a deal platform, how many big announcements will be made from the show? You guys getting a sense of that?
Some. I mean, like I've been invited to AWS and Adobe gatherings. Some other smaller companies are doing breakfasts or lunches or dinners or random bitterballen consuming with beers gatherings or whatever. So I really like this word bitterballen, which I've just found, which is a kind of a national snack food. It's a little bowl, snack-sized ball with a ragu of beef or veal inside and deep-fried breadcrumbs on the outside, and you pop them in with your beer because
Well,
they
we'll
do
we'll
beer
get
well
to
there.
that in a second. There's obviously stuff happening on the canals, and I took a little boat ride last time I was there a few years back. It was quite
Yeah,
nice.
made it off. That's good. Did you have
Yeah.
any bitterballen or herring?
I think it was just a lot of alcohol, which was, I think, fine with all
And
of it.
strip waffles.
Strip waffles. Yeah, you got to be
Nobody-
careful how you say that in English, though. It sounds a lot worse. Naked waffles, I mean, yeah, we strip off all the sugar and the butter and the syrup and the compote. It's just stripped waffles. Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. So there are plenty of places for Dutch comfort food. The show itself, okay, so we've got a what's probably going to be not post-pandemic record, but maybe starting to push that. But more importantly, this question of what AI can do for you in a very complicated, fractured, multi-language market that is huge or has huge potential. Probably a little bit behind the United States in part because of that fracturing. Also, you've got a lot of state-owned TV services and stuff doing their stuff, and that complicates things a little bit too, I think, how fast they move, how fast they embrace new technologies, et cetera, some of the considerations they have to deal with, and just the broader EU thumb on everything for content and advertising. And as Google keeps finding out as it keeps getting fined for violating lots of rules. So I think that's going to be really fascinating to see some of all that. Anything else, Bevin, that's kind of coming up for you that you want to kick at?
Well, I'm curious when you talk about AI and stuff, do you think that there's going to be more of a focus? I know, we hear about it in user experience, personalization, lots of different aspects it's being used at. Is there more of an infrastructure focus for the broadcasters? How they're modernizing their actual technology stacks and different things like that for new ages? I'm not sure. There's going to be a CTO roundtable with Paramount, Warner Brother, ITV. That might be an interesting tech talk too.
I think that'll be really interesting because among the things that David Ellison, the new chief of Paramount, was talk about, hey, we've got to A, cut $2 billion out. B, we've got 3 streaming services, BET Plus, Paramount Plus, and Pluto, if I recall.
I heard that the last time they did the CTO panel, that a bunch of rooms got trashed, that in addition to a plane just for him, a private jet was booked just to transport the Paramount guys, Courvoisier.
Well,
and that they had to get special dispensation and insurance this time just to house these guys.
I'm really hoping that our beloved producer cuts that out because I don't need the legal liabilities of my apparently already drunken
You associate CTOs with the rock star lifestyle.
Who's already been sucking down the Courvoisier himself. I just don't want to go into that too much. But that being said, David Ellison was talking about how they had 3 different streaming services with 3 different tech stacks, and they're going to unify those and have basically one kind of interface. And I think that's pretty interesting. And does this end up being like a Disney approach where we have all these different focused things, but we're going to start to put them all into one? So Paramount Plus is going to have BET Plus as an add-on, and it's going to have Pluto as the thing you come out to. This is sort of pulls you in. It's the Barker channels that pull you into Paramount Plus, and the Taylor Sheridan verse and all that. It'd be interesting to see what he has to say there. They have great international ambition, and they are not in nearly as many countries as they could be, certainly compared to Netflix. Same with Warner Brothers, the streaming side that will soon be out with the studios separate from the old cable operations. They're going to, they're in 100 countries now, and they're very proud of themselves, but they've got a good 100 to go. I mean, these Hollywood companies need to get as big as they can internationally to just start to try to get some scale to not compete with Netflix, at least be in the conversation.
Obviously, we're not talking about widgets here, and tariffs are not really an intellectual property discussion at this point. But do you think the trade situation here in the U.S. will have an impact or topical impact in IBC?
That's an interesting question, because there have been conversations about attempts to tax some of the streaming services, attempts to regulate them through the FCC. Your best buddy, Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman.
And we called today.
I'm sure he called you about the Courvoisier. He won a couple of cases. But that being said, there's a lot of things that haven't happened but are being talked about on the U.S. side. Do tariffs impact that? Does that, it certainly might affect any equipment makers, right? If it's not all purely software driven, I mean, that's a possibility. What the chip people do, what the assembly people do who do all this stuff. AI is definitely a thing in Europe too. Mistral is a French AI backed by the French government. It's very big. It's doing a lot of interesting stuff. But there are others out there, sovereign AI operations, and how do they get a hold of the chips they need and the assemblies they need of those chips and all the networking stuff. So some of that is a consideration. Some of that is a complication. And China's kind of knocking on the door saying, hey, we can help. So that'll be sort of interesting to assess as part of the broader question of where all this is going, I think.
So let's get to the really important part, which I know you want to, in terms of where you're going to eat, what you're going to do, how you're going to cut loose, both of you. I know David has plans. Bevin, what do you got going?
Well, I'm sticking around for a week after to have some fun. So
some bitter balling.
I'll have to see what comes up. Take a canal ride, eat some food. We'll see.
You're hanging out unsupervised? It's just you and the Netherlands, or
me and my better half.
Okay,
we're gonna go over to Paris too.
That's good. Well, I fully recommend that. We're heading to Paris also, taking the train.
Me too.
The last of the show was probably not that interesting, so we're heading south. But we'll get a couple of good, strong days of on the ground, seeing what's going on, talking to people. Certainly invite anybody watching, if they're representatives or they want to connect, to reach out. I've had a number of folks say, hey, looks like you're going to be there. Want to come to this or come visit us or whatever? So it should be a busy time while we're there. There are some lovely areas of Amsterdam. The 9 Streets is a famous area cut by 3 streets along 4 canals, with streets really on either side of the canal, with classic shops and cool little cafes. It's highly regarded. It's over in the edge of the Vondelpark. The 2 greatest museums in Amsterdam, the Rijksmuseum and the Van Gogh Museum, are very close, as is the Anne Frank House. But good luck getting in there if you didn't set that up months ago.
I went to that last time.
Yeah, so those are all kind of west of the Central District.
Yeah,
and
unfortunately, my agreement with the Dutch authorities is I can't enter airspace until I was there. The whole thing happened in 2017. So IBC 2027, I should be cleared to go.
I wouldn't hold my breath on that.
I
think I wouldn't hold my breath on that for you, because I think the possibility of violations of your parole are high. And so it may be extended, the ban. So someday soon, maybe you'll be able to get across the pond to the continent, but probably not to Amsterdam. So in the meantime, they'll have to rely on our reports from the front. So,
well, I'm going to give a few shout outs before we get out of here. I want to thank Bevin for appearing on the podcast today. If you want to read Bevin and myself, I contribute to Bevin's publications, StreamTV Insider. That's StreamTVInsider.com. Streaming news every day of the week, and lots of it coming directly from IBC next week. So, Bevin, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Always fun with you.
Yeah, and well, I also want to thank our sponsors for these issues. Cineverse and their Matchpoint brand, introducing some major revision to their products at IBC. Check them out. And also ACTA, which is a bunch of AI-driven streaming components that they're also showing off at the event. So you can read about them and see the interviews in this issue. And Dave, what else? Before we sign out of here, what do we got?
So I had great conversations with Tony Weedor of Cineverse/Matchpoint. It's the Matchpoint brand is several different bits of technology using AI and built on a really rock solid database of thousands and thousands of movies and TV shows. But out of that, that allows them to do a lot of really interesting things for search and discovery and much else for companies. ACTA is a little bit more of a, and I interviewed Matt Smith, a longtime industry veteran who's been in a lot of places, and now he's here at.
He really has. Mark
yeah.
Cuban's stories I thought were pretty interesting.
Yeah, he knows people. Matt knows people, no doubt about that. But he's been at it for a long time, and this company is both very young in that technically it launched in 2024, but also very old because its sort of spiritual ancestor was actually launched in 2007, and the guys who founded that are now the CEOs of this. In between, they got bought by Google, and they worked at Google Cloud as senior engineering executives, and so they bring an interesting mix of the entrepreneurial and the vast reach that is the Google Cloud and how you interact between those. And they have a suite of programs that are really interesting. So those are the kinds of companies that are going to be there trying to make a big dent. And I think they can, as everybody's taking on AI stuff.
I on both those interviews today, and they're great interviews. And you get a real sense of what, these big companies see happening at the show and why they're there. So I encourage everyone to quit out of this as soon as you can and go check those interviews out. And we hope you enjoy them as much as we enjoyed producing them. So, all right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Again, thanks, Bevin. Dave, thanks. And we'll see you at the show. Well, they will. I'm Daniel Frankel on behalf of David Bloom and Bevin Fletcher for Next TMT and StreamTV Insider. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.